This video contains or may contain spoilers for Hollow Knight. One item in Hollow Knight that is possibly more significant to the lore and to the knight than anything else is the Void Heart charm. For one thing, it unlocks 4 of the game's 5 endings and makes one impossible. There's much more to it than what's obvious, though. In this video, I'll be discussing all aspects of the Void Heart charm and what makes it so impactful in the game's story. First of all, the Void Heart causes the knight's shade to become passive. As I discussed in my video about the relationship between the knight and their shade, this happens because the shade now sees itself and the knight as 2 parts of the same whole. The knight has unified the void, and the shade now naturally wants to be one with the knight, or at the very least is willing to submit to them. The same thing happens to the siblings, who are the shades of vessels who died in the abyss. The knight is now the Lord of Shades, and the siblings accept their presence and are at peace when the knight approaches, as they all dissolve and sink into the ground when this happens. Second of all, the charm is described as being part of its bearer, and thus it can't be unequipped like other charms. Plus, it doesn't take up any notches like all other charms do. It is also one of the few charms that is directly transformed into from another. Not even the king and queen themselves could reveal the emptiness within the King's Soul charm, but now the knight has. Speaking of which, let's discuss how the knight acquires the charm. They enter their birthplace with the King's Soul, relive a memory of being abandoned in the abyss, and wake up with the charm now part of them. So why does this specific sequence of events cause the knight to become the unifier of the void? What is it about this particular memory that gives them that connection? Let's think of it this way. The words from the Pale King that are heard when the knight is closest to reaching the top of the abyss in their memory is, "Born of God and void." 2 very different things, yet existing together in a vessel. We see one of those gods, the Pale King, leave the knight behind. We then see their sibling, who is choosing between helping one of their brethren or following their father away from their birthplace, and they choose the latter. Reliving this event likely leads the knight to fully reject any part of themselves that has anything to do with the Pale King, giving them room to fully accept the other part of themselves, the void. Perhaps this rejection was required for both the void to accept the knight and the knight to accept the void. The Void Heart also symbolizes Hornet's trust in the knight. The knight having the charm is what makes her decide to intervene during the knight's battle with the Hollow Knight, even though she knows how dangerous it might be for her. This action makes the Sealed Siblings and Dream No More endings possible. Until this point in the story, Hornet has been noticeably hesitant about the possibility of the knight being a strong enough vessel to save the kingdom. Even there in the Temple of the Black Egg, she internally questions whether the knight could or should do that impossible thing, which would be defeating the Radiance. However, she clearly believes that acquiring the Void Heart has made the knight strong and trustworthy enough, and so she upholds her promise and aids her sibling. Additionally, the Void Heart represents the knight becoming the strongest possible version of themselves as it unlocks the Pantheon of Hallownest. The knight has completed 4 pantheons thus far, which is enough to reveal the unopened entrance to the 5th and final pantheon, but the Void Heart seems to be that special something that makes the Godseekers believe that the knight could take on every boss in this pantheon. Most of these bosses are, after all, more difficult to fight here than they were in the previous pantheons. In terms of gameplay mechanics, the charm is required because it is what will ultimately allow the knight to challenge and defeat the absolute Radiance with the unified power of the Void. That brings us to the final significance of the Void Heart, the fact that it gives the knight the ability to defeat a higher being. In the Dream No More ending, they are not a higher being themselves, yet still become a void entity, and having the void all around them is what allows them to vanquish the Radiance and command the void to swallow her completely. In the case of the Godhome endings, the knight, like every other creature, is at their highest potential power, which transforms them into a terrifyingly powerful higher being called the Shade Lord. The Radiance, even at her absolute power, is completely destroyed, and the knight remains in this form even after she is annihilated. I think there's a good reason that the final complete version of Hollow Knight was called Void Heart Edition, because it just encapsulates so much about the lore. What's your favorite thing about the Void Heart? Is it something I didn't discuss in this video? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to give it a like, share it, check out my other Hollow Knight videos, and subscribe to my channel for more. I hope you're doing okay, and I'll see you next time.